Vocal tuning is often misunderstood. Many don't realize how crucial it is or how it's done effectively. The truth is, tuned vocals are how you're used to hearing vocals, period. So today I'm here to show you that tuning is perhaps one of the most musical tools that you can use to create a great vocal sound. If you don't know me yet, I'm Antoine. I'm a music producer that primarily works with indie artists. Tuning vocals is a big part of what I do as a producer. So I know exactly how you need to think about vocal tuning and how you need to approach it. Before you get into tuning, you need to make sure that you get these next steps right. You need to capture a solid vocal performance. A great vocal take is the foundation of a great vocal sound. A well-recorded take will make tuning and processing much easier. What I suggest that you do is that you review all of the takes you recorded for your song and then pick out the best ones. Then you need to edit the vocals. One of the most important aspects of a good vocal take is timing. Vocals that are not on time are simply not good. Timing doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to make sure that it's good enough. Once that's done, you need to edit the vocal. Start off with the lead and then edit the doubles and the harmonies. Then you'll be ready to move on to tuning. Today I'll be dissecting the folk pop vocals of Milo for his song Something Beautiful. I'll be using Melodyne. Melodyne is a manual tuning plugin that you can use to have control over every single note of a vocal take. You can apply the concepts I'll be talking about to any manual tuning plugin. So what we're seeing here, first of all, is some blobs and then lines that run across those blobs. The blobs are actually the average of the note. So it's not the note itself. The lines actually represent much better the pitch variation that's happening here. So you really do need to take these lines into consideration more so than the blobs themselves. My first instinct when I'm tuning is to actually go in and tune everything to the scale. Today we're in B major. My goal is not to flatten everything too much. I really want to keep everything natural. Tuning is really a spectrum. You can go without any tuning or you can go full on auto tune if that is the sound you seek. I would say I'm sort of in the middle here. I sort of want this pop edge, but also want to keep things natural. Here's what that sounds like.
I try way too hard with the sorries.
So some notes are flat. So I'll just be going in with this pitch tool and replacing pretty much like all of these notes just to make sure that we're on the note. What you can see here is that if I double click on the note, it'll just put the blob dead center for the actual pitch, but the lines show us that it's actually being a bit sharp. So I can bring the sense down to make the lines more centered. Then I'll go in and use the pitch modulation tool here. And I want to reduce the modulation just a tiny bit.
To try where I try way too hard with.
And now what we're seeing here, we have this slide happening with the note. So we have this semitone from F to F sharp. So what I'll do is I'll actually cut the note in two so that I can bring this one down to E.
I try way too hard with.
So for the end of the notes, I also want to make sure that those lines don't go too sharp.
Where I try way too hard with the sorries.
With words like these, we can see there's a natural vibrato, which sounds good, but I just want to make it a bit more even. So I'll reduce the pitch modulation and then I'll go and use the pitch drift tool. You'll see how this pitch drift tool makes the line smoother.
I try way too hard with the sorries that'll keep you around, keep you around, that'll keep you around.
So here we can hear that we have some notes that are not quite following the scale. So I'll just bring those down to C sharp.
That'll keep you around, will.
And this last note is sharp.
That'll keep you around, will.
I can bring it down to E and then reduce the pitch modulation.
That'll keep you around, will you?
I actually prefer this if this remained a D sharp.
That'll keep you around, keep you around. Will you wait around?
So don't be afraid to cut longer notes into smaller notes so you can adjust each of them individually. It's honestly sort of simple when you have just a single lead. You just have to make sure that the notes are in scale and that they sound natural. So don't overdo things and just go through each note and make sure that it sounds right. But most often what happens is that you have doubles and harmonies, and so tuning needs to be tighter, otherwise it sounds sort of chorusy. I'll give you an example here. So Milo did quite a good job of having similar takes that gel together already. But if we take a listen to this last chorus.
For you, the monsters in our room.
We can hear some pitch inconsistencies, which is honestly to be expected. But for example, this first note.
For you, for you, for you, for you.
That's a semitone. We want to avoid that. It doesn't sound too pleasant.
The monsters in our room, our room, our room, our room.
The R. Most often the start of certain phrases don't sound tuned, so we just have to fix that. How I do that is I basically open up Melodyne, and with this version that I have, I can basically compare two takes. So I can select another track and it'll show me the blobs, the gray blobs underneath, and how it's related to the one I have, which is the yellow red one. I'll basically go and take a look at this first note that we have for the chorus. That's a bit dissonant.
For you.
What we're seeing here is that one track plays an F sharp and the other one is a G, so that's a semitone, and that doesn't sound too pleasant. So I'll just make sure that this one is on F sharp, because that is a note I want. And I want to make sure that we avoid sort of this downward vibrato. So I'll reduce the pitch modulation.
For you.
Already much better, but I'll go to that second track and do the same thing. So just make sure it's an F sharp, reduce the pitch modulation.
For you.
And then we also have this sort of note, so the A sharp that's sort of sliding into the B. Just make it sharper just so we avoid any weird slides.
For you.
Cut this into two just so I can make the beat even more accurate.
For you.
So I basically want to make them as similar as possible without ruining each of the take individually. So if I listen to the double.
For you. The monsters in our room.
Sounds a bit more tuned, but that's all right to me because I feel like the lead will take up much more space within the mix.
For you. The monsters in our room.
So here we can actually see the pitch inconsistencies. So I'll bring this note down, make this a B, and go to that first one and do the same thing. Comparing these two tracks is actually super helpful here. And I'll once again just reduce some of that vibrato that's happening.
For you. The monsters in our room.
What I also like to do when it comes to pitch is to also play around with the timing of the notes. So we can hear that towards the end of this word, one take is actually going down earlier than the other. So what I'll do here is I'll go to the time grid and I'll deactivate it just so I can stretch that note a tiny bit to make them more even, rhythmically speaking.
I'll let the
It sounds much tighter. You can sort of see tuning as sort of bricks to a house. So you're making sure that every brick is placed right so that whenever you put a roof on top, it actually makes sense. It's more so the small actions that you do that sort of compound to turn into something that sounds a lot more cohesive with the track. You shouldn't aim for something that's super drastic. That'll pretty much ruin the recording. And so if you go back to these first steps and make sure that you have an actually good recording, You shouldn't have to do that much. You just have to elevate the performance when you're tuning.
I'll let the light right through.
Once again, here we have this inconsistency with pitch. Not a big deal, but I basically want to make sure that we're on the scale.
I'll let the light right through.
I'll cut this one just so we have a D sharp that's a bit more clear.
I'll let the light right through.
Once again, I'll stretch this one, making things a tiny bit tighter.
I'll let the light right through.
I'm quite satisfied with this.
I'll become something beautiful. It's true.
So when everything is tuned, you should have something that sounds like this.
For you, the monsters in our room. I'll let the light right through. I'll become something beautiful. It's true.
If you're an artist and want to release songs that you're actually proud of, I'd love to help. I work with indie artists all the time, and my vibe is to actually create a space that's fun, creative, and safe for everyone to share their ideas. This is where we can turn your demos into songs that sound amazing. If that sounds like something you'd be down for, check the link in the description. And if you've gotten this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you dig this sort of content. Thank you.